is Trish, and welcome to Teacher Therapy. Today we have a very special guest named Sarah, back by popular demand. And she had an incredible idea to just talk today about all of the ways that teachers can sometimes self-sabotage, end up burning out. And we just wanted to help teachers avoid some of the common pitfalls. But first, I would love for Sarah, can you just tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I taught as a math teacher for 12 years. I was a math department head, a math coach, and I also served on the budget committee, several oversight committees, volunteered within the school. So I definitely was a go-getter in the classroom. But after 12 years, it just became too much for me. So, and then I had my children and I decided to stay home. And now I am a homeschool teacher.
Awesome. Cool. What are one of the first ways that teachers end up self-sabotaging right out the gate?
So one of the first things teachers do is to overpay for a degree. So what I mean by that is years ago, historically, a teaching degree was what was required for teachers was an associate's degree. So that was many, many years ago. All you needed was an associate's degree. So now it is a bachelor's degree. So what I'm finding is teachers are going beyond that and volunteering to get a master's degree. And you're ending up in so much debt. The payback is not even worth it. The cost to benefit. Unless you're going to get a promotion, then this is not something I recommend. And what happens is you end up stressed out. You have so much debt over your head, and now you feel like you're tied to the job. And so when you feel like you're anchored in, it's the most excruciating feeling.
That is so true. I wish I would have thought of this advice when I was younger, because I had the bright idea to go to a private university that was $30,000 a year for my undergrad. And then I ended up getting a master's degree. And let's just say I have about $100,000 worth of debt. And I'm thinking, what was I thinking?
I'm right there with you. I have over $100,000 of debt, and it didn't give me any more promotion opportunities. It didn't afford me anything else. But I must say, as you go through for the school grades, one of the criteria to assign a school a higher grade is the qualifications of the staff. So administrators often tell teachers, if you want to do great in teaching, or if you want to be more effective in the classroom, or even to get more in-service hours, go ahead and get your master's degree. Well, that's because it makes the school looks better and their grades are higher, but it's not really adding to you as a teacher. All it's doing is putting you in more debt. And if you're doing it for a promotion, if no one has come to you and say, hey, Trish, I think you'd be a great administrator. Go ahead and get your master's degree and we're going to promote you. If nobody said that to you, getting a degree for a promotion opportunity is useless, because the promotions come by networking. And oftentimes it's the coaches, the sports coaches who get the degrees, because they're with the admin the most. They're at the games after school. They're, rubbing shoulders with them, talking to them. So the admin feels like this would be a good person to add to the team versus Sarah, who's working 12 hours, 13 hours a day, killing herself, getting a master's degree after work and coming to the interview like, hey, I'm qualified, hire me. That administrator's thinking, I like her right where she's at in the classroom, but I like this guy. He's pretty chummy with me, and I want to promote this guy or this woman, whoever they choose.
You just unlocked a mystery for me that I never put together. I had like 4 admins that used to be a coach or a PE teacher, and I literally never thought about why. You just unlocked a mystery.
And you're thinking, this person isn't even the most qualified. They're not serving on this committee. They did nothing leadership wise, but they were with that person hours upon hours after school at the games. They have to do duty at the games. And so that's who they promote. It's about networking. It's not about who the hardest worker is or how many degrees you get. Well, as a result, the rule of education is if teachers do it, it will slowly become a requirement. We have some states now that are requiring teachers to have a master's degree just to teach in the classroom. So you have to take out $60,000, $70,000 of debt to teach in a classroom. And then you have states like North Carolina that doesn't even give you any money for an advanced degree or any certifications. So you're just better off being in a state where the requirements are a bachelor's degree, going to a public institution, doing the bare minimum to be in the classroom, if that's your desire.
That is really good advice. And kind of speaking of finances, what's something else that teachers do that kind of bites them in the end with money?
This is another one. I've served on the budget committee, all sorts of committees. At the beginning of the year, they have lots of monies. The big thing was we don't have funding in the schools well, they've been pouring in a lot of money in the schools, but if you're doing it, it's not going to go to you. So one of the ways that teachers are sabotaging themselves is by providing supplies for the classroom when money could be allocated to the supplies. But if you're feeling that need, we're not going to provide it. So if you're buying dry erase markers on your own, pencils, papers, school supplies, things to decorate your classroom, after a while, they're going to withdraw those funds and that responsibility will be on you.
That is so true. I would spend probably a minimum of $1,500 throughout the year on just decorations and supplies. It's wild. And I actually heard of a neighboring district where they made a mandate for the entire school building saying that students have to bring nothing, that it is the right of a student to not only come to school for free, but to have all of their supplies furnished for them. And this is a wealthy district, which is the weird part. So that's crazy.
Mind-boggling. Here's what's mind-boggling. If you listen to the radio or watch this, whatever, before the school year starts, they have supply drives. Churches have supply drives. The sheriff department has supply drives where everybody's getting supplies and all the parents and students have to do is go there. Well, why should I even go there when I could just walk in the door and the teachers will be giving me the supplies? So most of the time, they don't even go to get the supplies because you're going to provide it. I mean, they have the cleaners for the desk, all that. You could easily go to the janitor and ask them for their supplies, and the school has to replenish that. But instead, we are depriving ourselves, our families of money, and we're providing it to another student. Another thing is the food. We had so many snacks upon snacks in our classroom. They could go to the school counselor. First of all, teenagers snack. I know for me teaching high school and middle school, that's what they like to do. They snack. If you have it there, they're going to snack. They're not starving. Okay. So they could go to the counselor if you believe that they do not have food. If they come in first thing in the morning, they miss breakfast, and they will get them a meal. And so we have taken all this responsibility upon ourselves. And part of it is that every school training is always from a point of guilt, the capturing the kid's heart, the this and that. They give you the worst stories of the worst stories so we could get in a guilt mindset. And I went to a parenting seminar not too long ago, and they said the worst thing you could do is parent out of guilt. Let guilt guide your parenting. Teaching is the same way. When you're letting guilt guide your teaching, you feel bad for the student, so you're doing this. You feel bad for the student, so you're doing that. They never actually get the responsibility on themselves. And you hear them say, well, if I don't do it, they're going to go without. That's not true. Once again, the cafeteria, you could send them and they will get them food to eat. They're not going to let them starve.
What are some ways where teachers' time is drained and they just have to start saying no?
Teachers, and I've been guilty of that, sometimes it's for ambition, and that's another lie they tell you. Well, if you get involved in this committee and this committee, then you are more visible and you are more seen. And so they get you involved in everything, staying after school late, and all that does. And if you're doing it for promotion opportunities, is solidifying your place as a forever teacher. Because they're like, you're so valuable. We cannot lose you in the classroom. You're staying late to tutor the students. You're doing the extra, going the extra mile. And not only are you doing that, you're also setting a precedent. Like I said, everything you do in education, it starts off voluntary and then it becomes a mandate. So you come in early to help out with the buses. Now we're going to require you to help out with the buses. You're supplying the classroom. I don't know who started supplying it, but now every teacher is required. Teachers who are making, I mean, North Carolina, we just barely broke 40,000 last year in the year 2024, and you're not getting master's pay or advanced pay, and you're being required to fund, you're being required to stay extra hours. Now, every little thing is mandatory. We went through training that said, oh, if you show up at the games, you're solidifying, you're building relationships with their students. Now it's on an evaluation rubric for some campuses that you must be present to this amount of game or activities. So now that's a requirement. Instead of us drawing the boundary and say, this is our contracted hours and we're leaving, those of us who feel like we're being overachievers and just trying to get that job security, you're actually setting a precedent that this is going to be a future requirement for teachers.
You are so right. You actually just reminded me of something that I noticed with the evaluation rubrics. So they absolutely, for all of the top tiers, let's say that it's on a scale of 10, if you wanted between a 7 and 10, it would always incorporate volunteering or teaching and leading other teachers. So let's say one of the standards is instructional knowledge. Well, it doesn't matter how much you know, you can't get beyond a 7 unless you actually led and taught professional development. And I was just thinking that's so unfair in so many ways. Some people, for one, are kind of shy and introverted and don't exactly want to teach, 200 teachers a professional development seminar. But you're just so right. They're just making it where even to succeed, you're having to do all of these extra things that actually have nothing to do with the job.
And they have funds for it. They could bring in outside experts. They actually have funds to have people come in and do leadership coaching. But if you're doing it, they don't have to pay them. It's all about using you to achieve their goal and trying to maximize on all of your talents and skills instead of outsourcing and having a balanced employee. They're just depleting you of everything so that they could get their objectives met.
That is so true. You just unlocked another buried memory for me. In one of my districts, they kind of came up with this cheesy sounding, sweet, syrupy idea. They're like, there is so much wealth and knowledge within this building. You guys will be leading our professional development meetings once a week. And so now we had to rotate and be responsible for doing the professional development too. So, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So let's talk about parents. What are some ways that teachers self-sabotage with parents?
So a couple weeks back, I saw a follower. Now she is not in a district that is implementing no deadline for assignments. And so she has a big following, and apparently she's on one of the leadership teams at her schools, and she is setting the trend of no deadlines for assignments. If your campus does not have that, you are not doing a service to teachers by saying no deadlines for assignments. Continue to maintain your standards because there's very little standards left in education. And as we look at these progressive states, they've already gone to having minimum grades with no deadlines. So the students could turn in assignments whenever they like, and you're doing a disservice to them. It's going to catch up with them. In work, they're going to have deadlines. I'd like to say in some colleges, they're going to have deadlines, but unfortunately, that is migrating to the college level as well. But they're going to need deadlines. And when I thought about it, so when I moved to Pennsylvania, I took a hiatus from teaching. Teaching there is very competitive. The salaries are super high. And so as somebody who's new or a transient person coming to that area, they're not really going to give an outsider opportunity versus those that have been there in the community. So while there, I work for the Department of Human Services, or formerly known as the Welfare Department. And I noticed the same things they do for students, they're also doing for the welfare clients. They give them a letter that says, this is your deadline, and they could turn it in whenever they want. That letter meant nothing. And just seeing the parallels, like you giving students deadline, they could turn it in wherever they want. They're not becoming responsible adults. What are we funneling them into? And so that was a concern of mine. And if you are in a district where You still have the autonomy to set those kind of policies for your classroom. Once you start doing it, it will be the mandate. So everybody will have to be on that same page. Same thing goes for my students have phones in their classrooms, or parents, they know me, they just get the phones back. When you're doing that, not only are other teachers going under the radar, I mean, they're on the radar now because they're maintaining those firm policies in their classroom. So you're actually sabotaging them. And then next thing you know, it becomes a policy. We cannot take away their phones, or we cannot require them to turn in assignments in on time.
Definitely. When I was thinking of ways that teachers self-sabotage with parents, I was reminded of what I did maybe the first 4 or 5 years of teaching. And I essentially would give out my personal cell phone number to everyone. I put it on the syllabus. I told the parents, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And I figured out that this was a bad idea when I got into a texting argument with a mom at like 9:30 p.m. because she was upset that her daughter couldn't lead the Pledge of Allegiance over the intercom for the school. And these were like, I think, 6th graders at the time. And I basically, to make a long story short, told the students, if you're going to have this responsibility, it's going to have to be yours. I'm not going to chase you down and remind you, or else I'm just going to pick one person to do it for the whole entire month. So this little girl said, I promise, I'll remember. I want to do it so bad. And she didn't, she forgot. And so I was like, okay, you lost that privilege. And yeah, the mom was just arguing with me. And I was like, what was I thinking to give my cell phone number away and just to not have those boundaries?
New teacher things. But there are apps now like Reminder, but if you want to make it appear as if you are available for connection, I would suggest through the district website. I don't know if the district uses Google or not, but you can always have a Google phone number. Don't monitor it, just have it there. Give it to the parents, and that makes it seem like I'm available. But once again, if you do that, then you have the responsibility for monitoring that number. Whatever you give them, you have the responsibility for it. So I would avoid it altogether. But if you do have a really motivated group of students and you'd like to help them out, get a Google number that is not attached to your phone that you could check after work hours, and set hours, set boundaries. I only monitored this from the hours of 3 to 4. And so if you send it after 4, I won't see it, or 3 to 5, and that's it.
Definitely. So one of the things that I thought of in my own life that I really, really struggled with as a teacher was just the idea of caring too much what people thought and comparing myself to other teachers. What are some of your thoughts on that topic?
So when I first started teaching, and they do it, they do it intentionally. They have the video. It's through your orientation, the first day, and all the in-service, they always have a video of the teacher of the year. And I was like, wow, I want to be that teacher of the year. They're using all the policies, everything that was trained to do this marvelous reel and show you how their class is moving like a well-oiled machine, etc. So what I realized is, once again, it comes down to connections. Teacher of the year, most of the time. There are really excellent teachers who do earn that teacher of the year, but for the most part, it's about network. They handpick students to remove from the classroom while they're recording the reel. They pick the teacher who is teaching AP, whatever, honors AP gifted, and they select them to be the teacher of the year so that when they are implementing all these policies, it looks really great. So what you have to remind yourself is, what am I dealing with, and how can I do the best that I could do with that? Maybe the teacher of the year doesn't have 3 kids at home, so they have more time to allot into the classroom. Maybe if the teacher of the year is doing more and they're just not as focused on their family, which could be the case a lot of the times. So instead of comparing, I just compared myself to myself. I mean, how can I grow better as a teacher? Can I get the assignments in on time? Can I get the assignments graded and in on time and available for the parents to view? And that was what I did. But teachers, when you're often comparing, you don't know, you don't know what you're comparing yourself to. You have no idea that person could be, have more tenure than you do, have, students that are more motivated. So, and then after I figured out that teacher of the year was just one big farce, I actually left campuses and I found out they nominated one teacher and I was like, there's no way he should have been teacher of the year. That's when I really realized that, hey, this is a big joke, and it's all meant to convince you of something that is really not the case.
That is so true. I'm kind of reminded of, and I have to word this delicately, I noticed that one year it seemed like a administrator really favored a certain teacher. And then I come to find out it's because they were dating each other secretly. And I was like, here I am thinking, oh, how come the principal doesn't like me? Well, because I'm not his girlfriend, it turned out. So, the scandals are never ending within education.
Which is highly inappropriate, by the way, and could end badly. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. That's another way you could sabotage yourself. Dating people on campus. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea.
So true. Well, I was kind of brainstorming this idea about just my own life. And another thing that I really realized that I made a mistake in was I let teaching become my identity in so many ways. And I kind of let my self esteem rise and fall on what other people were thinking about me or what I perceived other people to think about me. And this kind of ended up making me neglect my own personal interest and my hobbies and sometimes even my health. So I'm kind of curious if you've ever seen that within education.
This is a systemic problem in education right now. I believe in Europe, also in America, they surveyed teachers, and 70% of them said they suffered from some form of mental health, mental illness issues. Anti-anxiety is on the rise, anti-depression is on the rise. I mean, people are on prescription drugs, diabetes, chronic health. At the end of the day, if you do want to have a full career in education, you have to be in having the best health to get your pension. Otherwise, you've worked for 30 years and you die, you don't even get the benefit of your pension, which is the case with a lot of teachers. Teachers are either not making retirement or not living past their retirement. So neglecting your health is not a good idea. They used to do something like honor the Teachers' Day and bring teachers donuts. People who are burned out and already suffering from health issues, diabetes, etc., they would come by and we called it the fat cart. And I'm like, I'm not taking from them anymore. I'm like, I'm not taking it anymore. And a group of us started going to the gym together. And this is really how you kind of burn off all that negative stress and energy that you acquired through the day by doing some self-care in the form of exercise, eating better, so that you can, live past this job. I've seen so many people just die on the job, or alcoholics they were so depressed they would drink alcohol on the job. I can think of two people off the top of my head. People smoking marijuana. They're all time. I mean, we are so inundated with this stressful environment. It's an environment right now that you're not set up to win in. You could set behavior policies in your classroom. It's undermined. You're setting academic policies in your classroom. It's undermined. So you have to take care of yourself. And to top that off, we now have teachers who are parents. They have mom guilt. I would stay late and think, she's there too, and she has children. I mean, now you're neglecting your family for this position, and so it could really just have you spiraling on a downward spiral.
Definitely. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of this brilliant saying that I try to remember. Basically, anytime you're worrying about something, you ask yourself, will this matter in 5 days? Will this matter in 5 months? Will this matter in 5 years? And that can kind of help with the perfectionism and just overthinking. Because I know every time that I knew an observation was coming up, I would just freak out and probably spend literally an extra 20 hours just preparing and trying to be perfect and trying to prep the class. And it's just something that I put so much stress and pressure on myself, and kind of how we talked about earlier. Sometimes teachers that do that, they're not even ones that even get promoted. So it's just so important to really think about, is it worth it to just stress yourself out out so much.
And from an administrator's point of view, their goal is to have growth. So it's all a game to them. Even if you did an excellent job in teaching the class, they're always going to set it back if it's the beginning of the year so that they could show that how the growth has progressed. So if they give you a top score now, it won't look believable or credible if where else are you going to go but up higher, and if you're at the ceiling. So a lot of what they do is artificially kind of place you back here so that they can show the growth among the staff members.
That is so true. You're bringing back so many memories, Sarah. I remember somebody being really upset at their evaluation, and they're like, I absolutely met every single
Every
criteria. And they said,
criteria.
we never give 10s because nobody's perfect. So it's
Yeah.
like, I can do all of this and literally meet every single criteria. And just on principle, you're not going to give me a 10. And so there's just so many silly things that are just like
Nuances
you
and
said.
secrets. Nuances and secrets that they're not divulging to you. Another thing that they do is if they're giving all of these teachers 10s and the test scores are not, the end of the year test scores are not reflecting those 10s, how do they reconcile those two? So if they don't feel the students might not perform that well, your assessment is going to reflect that, unfortunately.
That honestly makes a lot of sense because it's such a trend within education to say everything that is the teacher's fault. So a
Yes.
district can always say, oh, well, we are working on developing our teachers. We're implementing these strategies and programs to make our teachers better. And like you said, at will, they can kind of artificially inflate things to say, look, this program is working. Our teachers have showed, this much growth on the
Yes.
chart. And so much of teaching is just a really weird, bizarre game. And so as kind of a mindset hack, I think it's just so important for new teachers and even teachers that have been around a while to just keep remembering so much of education is a game and so much of it is arbitrary. I remember just the difference between teaching in a charter school and then moving on to teaching in a private school. And I didn't change as a teacher, but what they considered good teaching was completely diametrically opposite. In the charter school, they wanted to see lots of activities and cooperative learning groups and people working on hands-on activities. In the private school, they wanted it to look like a university lecture. Students were silent, they were in rows, and the teacher was talking for 25 minutes straight. And so if I were to compare myself and say, oh, I'm such a terrible teacher, it's so funny. You could go to a different school or district and be like considered the best teacher ever. So I just think, like you said earlier, it's so important to just compare yourself with yourself. If you're growing as a teacher, if you're growing in classroom management, if you're growing in confidence, and kind of just try to ignore as best as you can what other people are evaluating you as.
And it also helps to figure out the why. So one year I was strict about attendance. I mean, if they're late and they're not here, according to the policy, they're supposed to fail the class regardless of their grade if they didn't have certain amount of academic hours. And then I see a big rush for Saturday school. Next thing you know, they passed. They probably showed up maybe 10 classes in the year, or, the students have a grade all of a sudden. At the end of the semester, there's a huge rush to let them make up late assignments. And I'm thinking, what is this about? Well, if you look up your school report card, each state is different, but if you look up your school report card, the reason why they artificially inflate the attendance is because student attendance is one of the matrix that they grade the school on. So if your school attendance look bad, your school grade goes from C to D. Student grades is one of them. Graduation rate is one of them. These are things as a school that they could artificially inflate. They can't inflate the test scores, they can't inflate AP scores, college admissions, but they can artificially inflate the attendance by offering a Saturday school. Of course, they didn't learn the material in 1 or 2 Saturdays, but it's a way for them to get that school grade. So at the end of the day, they are trying to meet their objective, which is to get the school grade. So as a teacher, once you know all of these things, your goal is not to take it personal. Focus on yourself. Do what you can in the classroom. don't overspend on supplies and overextend yourself, and do just pretty much a bare minimum to help your students succeed. And if they don't want to succeed, there's nothing you could do, but your job is to get the message to them, give them the tools to succeed, and that's the best you could do.
Very wise words, Sarah. Thank you so much. Are there any other last tips that you want to share with the audience if they're either a new teacher or a struggling teacher and they're just thinking this job is so ridiculous? Like, what would you say to encourage them?
I can't lie to them and say it will get better. So like the song says, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. If you can't be in the career that you want to be, and this is what it is for you, then make the best out of it, make the most out of it, find ways that you can find enjoyment out of it. But it is a crushing system. I wouldn't advise people to go into education, but if their heart feels led to do it, then do it to the best of your abilities, but do not overextend yourself, your health, your finances. At the end of the day, you have to go home to your family. And that's another thing. Do not neglect your family for this teaching position. Divorces, different things like that, being overworked, overstressed, don't have time. You're helping others' children, but you don't have time for your own children. That is the greatest travesty that many teachers have to deal with. So prioritize yourself and your family. That's first. And then give whatever's remaining to your work.
Beautifully said. We always get the truth from Sarah. I love it. Well, audience, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to let us know your tips and tricks in the comments to help any teachers that are struggling. And let us know if you have any video ideas for the future. If you want to interview with me, you can email me at teachertherapytrish@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and we will see you guys next time. Bye for now, everybody.